Alright guys, hello and welcome to the Inky Raven. So today we're gonna expand a little bit upon our watercolor boxes and actually do some using some acrylic. So I'm gonna use a mixture of some chroma acrylic, student acrylic, and some Blick acrylics. But so to start with, I'm gonna go ahead and make some notes on my paper. So, and I'm gonna draw it out really in pencil just to kind of make sure I know where I'm going. But so light sources create a highlight, a shadow, and a drop or cast shadow. So these are three things to keep in mind if you're working with a light source and wanting to use that to shade your object more realistically. So really lightly, just to sketch out some boxes. And these don't have to be perfect. This is all about practice. So, and a cool thing that can be super helpful, super easy when using a light source is to draw kind of like a mini sun, so that you know where your light is coming from for each specific box. So for this one, I'm going to shade it from above and kind of from the other side, and so my light source will, well, my drop shadow on the ground will kind of be like that. So that one's kind of done in 2-point perspective where you're only really seeing like the corner edge. So this one, I'll come down here and make one and kind of light it from above. Draw one here in the center, and these don't have to be big, they don't have to be huge, just as long as you kind of know what you're doing. So this one I'll light from directly above, so it'll have part of a shadow like that, and you can just block these out really easy. You don't have to be perfect with them. Again, this is all about practicing. Alright, so this one I'm gonna light from about like ground level and right here in like this. Actually, I'll move that a little bit. So at least in this stage, like, you can still erase things, but I mean, if it's not perfect, it's just practice. The more you do it, the better you'll get at it. And again, so working with your basic forms can really help in kind of get a perspective for painting with more precise things, more realistic things. And so this last one here, have our shadow like this, because it can also help you in a more familiar territory really work with blending paints and everything else. Alright, so to get started with this, I'm going to be using red today. I'll probably do each of these a different color, but I'm going to really work with two brushes, one for my darks and one for my lights. So to start with, what I'm going to do is you can either go ahead and paint everything except for your shadows, kind of like your base color, or you can go ahead and like pre-mix your paint. So I'll kind of do a little bit of both of those, but since the depending on how you want to do it, if you want to keep your brushes kind of clean, you might need 3 brushes, one for your red if you want to do each box separately, or you can work on them kind of together. So I'll try a couple different things here, kind of like I did with the watercolor tutorials, because you can do a bunch of different things. So to start with, I'm going to paint probably about 3 of these. Go ahead and lay down some red. Over the whole box, and actually this one, I'm going to smooth that out so that I can see the outline of my box. I'm going to go ahead and paint the shadow red on this one as well. And so we'll do a couple of different things here. Again, paint's not quite as erasable, but so if you make a mistake, don't worry about it. It's not the end of the world. Okay, and I'll do this one up here. And so the other ones I'll just do kind of as we get to them. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and get one more brush. That way I can keep this, keep my reds fresh and clear without having to mix them. And I'll go ahead and paint the shadow red on this one as well. Alright, so some of that has started to dry. That's not a problem. Alright, so what I'm going to do is in 2 of these sections, I'm going to put a little bit of red. Well, actually in 4 of these sections, I'll put a little bit of red and kind of scrape the brush off and set it up to the side of the way. In 2 of these sections, I'm going to add one with just a little bit of black, 2 with a second one with a lot of black, and put that up to the side for now. And then these 2, probably about 2 scoops of red. And then 4 scoops of red. So depending on what you're doing, if you have enough brushes, by all means use a different brush for each one of these little sections. So to start with, I'm going to mix the slightly lighter, and we'll go ahead and work with it in a few of these. So this is going to be not the highlight, but next to it, so on your lightest surface. So for this one, I mean, your light surface is really over there, but you might add a little bit in this corner, kind of fade it out. And of course, I'm more used to drawing and painting, but you can go back in with the red and kind of blend there and work with both colors wet. But so I can go in here, work with them both a little bit wet and lighten up that corner. Without making it like super pink. And so this one, I do want to go ahead and use that pink. So the top of the box will likely have that color. And then it will kind of fade into the highlight, so I'll go ahead and add just a little bit there. So for this one, it would be the top edge there and kind of fade in towards where the light source is. This one, again, it would be kind of here. And so the more paint that you work with, the easier kind of working with them wet will be. I am a lot more used to watercolor, so it is what it is. So this one, it would be that top edge there. And you can add a little bit of water to acrylic as well. It's just going to be a lot more opaque and a different kind of texture than when using watercolor. Okay, so have kind of those pinkish on here. I'm gonna lighten that up just a little bit and just kind of dry brush that out. So you can tell it's a little bit lighter without being too much lighter. Okay, and then I'm gonna go back in and really mix this, the even lighter pink. And that still looks fairly dark, so I'm going to go ahead and just pull as much of that as I can into a separate one, since I still have a ton of really red there. And then just grab a whole lot more white. Yeah, that's going to lighten it up quite a lot. So when doing this, you can make your color changes as drastic as this so that it's easier to see, or you can make them more subtle and realistic. Just depends on what you're going for. You can do a little bit of both. So this, I go back in, this would be a highlight color. So that would be here, here, and again these would blend a lot better with it actually being wet, but we can go back in and grab some of this darker. And kind of fade it in just a little bit more. And so generally your paint will dry a little bit darker. So again, depending on what you're going for, you can do several different things. So just kind of play with your lights and get it to the colors that you're blending if you're blending on the face. Sometimes you may not have to do that, and this one would probably be easier to work potentially box by box versus jumping around like typically done with watercolor so that it dries. This is also one of the things that you could mess with for hours, and it's just kind of you reach a point and just kind of, it's best to let it go. Alright, so for this black goes a long way. So for the slightly black, I'm actually going to take a lot more red, and there we go. There's a nice shader color. Okay, so for this, I'll go in and shade the sides that I want to be a little bit darker than that base red. So you do want to kind of leave some of the base there, and you can fan this out so that it kind of adds some depth there. And so for this one, I'll add it to this side, and you can, when doing this, you can shade some of your box sides. You don't have to like double shade them. Again, as more practice, like you might get more comfortable adding more shades. Just do what's kind of comfortable. And I do not have an actual red on that. You do want to make sure to leave your base color somewhere in your form. Even if it is just a tiny little piece. So I'll go back over with the actual red right there, and it'll make that have a little bit of shading to it. And so for this one, do this, as it is slightly closer to the light source than this one. Right, so now that we have our base color added back in, we can go in with that slightly shaded, kind of like a mulberry red color. And not going to even pretend to lie, getting straight edges with the brush can be incredibly difficult, especially if you're in a hurry. So do kind of the best you can. Again, it's all kind of practice. And unfortunately, unlike with pencil, you can't really touch up a lot of this, other than like taking white paint or like going back in and layering it on top with the other surrounding colors. So depending on what you're going for, can be quite difficult. Okay, so there's our little bit of red color, and I'm gonna layer that in just a little bit more. That's just the regular red. And I will also apologize. Normally I am like face close to paintings when I do them, so being this far away in order to hopefully not get in as much of the way of the camera is really hard to really see what I'm doing and be as fine-tuned as I would normally like to be when creating or painting something. So for this darker red, I'm going to go in and grab some red, more black than what we had, and just kind of mix, play around until I'm kind of happy with it. Because I would like to leave a shade slightly lighter than black. And if we get into color theory and everything, generally to create nice rich browns, you would use like the opposite colors, so you would use like greens. But so this is a very, very dark red. It probably looks black on the camera. I'm not sure if you can quite tell the difference. But so you can go in and use kind of like the darkest red or brown-ish color that you can make your shadow. That is this one. Or you can go in, kind of add some of that to some of your boxes. So that right there, what I've done is dry brushing. So if your layer underneath is dry, you can kind of fade over top lightly to get that kind of technique. And a little bit of shading going on to give it a different look than trying to layer it, and I'll try to zoom in on that if I remember before I close the video. But so again, that you can do your shadows like that. You can also do this, you might be able to tell the difference. Do a shadow in pure black for your cast shadow, which will be a little bit deeper. Than your brown there, and so it's probably hard to tell on this, but I'll see if I can pick it up and change that. But so this is kind of that same dry brushing technique, kind of leaving some of the edge. If you do it just on the white paper, it's gonna look like that and kind of feather out. And so part of practicing is also trying new things. And so this one, right shadow here. And depending on what the material your box is made out of, like you might have like a reflected shadow or reflected light from like the table bouncing onto your light source. Generally that happens right around your shadow. Usually it kind of gives like an outline of things almost. And so for that, if you're wanting to add it, like this one where it's kind of hard to tell where that corner is, you can go in with like a little bit of white almost and kind of outline that a little bit. Pink per se. Actually, I'm going to darken up the bottom of this as well and put another reflected light shadow there. So that would be just right along through there. Kind of just helps define the box a little bit. This one could probably use just a little bit right there at that corner. So yeah, these aren't nice, they aren't neat, they aren't precise, but they're good practice. But so depending on how fast you go with it or how slow you go, you can achieve better looking results. But so let's see if I can maneuver this a bit. So with this one, you can kind of tell where the dry brushing with the darker over top the darkest over the darker kind of made that a little bit easier, as well as some of the blending in there. But yeah, so again, and you can kind of tell maybe a little bit of the difference between the red and the pure black shadow. But so again, not the best, not the worst, but they do look like boxes when it's really fuzzy from afar before I fix the camera. But so you guys stay safe, have fun, and make some cool stuff.